Hey, what is up everyone? It is Rich. Alright, welcome to a new video. We're going to do another Beyond the Page. Today, I have a very kick-ass page from penciler Ed Bennis. So this is Ed Bennis's pencils, my inks. We'll get into it in a second. We will talk tools today. I updated the little visual representation of it. But anyway, so yeah, you know, I set my mind to the idea of just doing 5 of these in a row. So Monday through Friday, we're going to do one of these Beyond the Page. And then it'll be a regular feature on my channel, at least for a while. I'll probably do 2 a week. They're shorter videos, you know. I know not everyone can commit to my 2 and 3 hour epic videos that I do. So we need something that's a little more bite-sized. So anyway, we're going to take a really close look at this. I'll share some stories and insights into Ed's work, and we'll look at what exactly we did here. So first things first, let's look at the tools. All right, so I know, Kitty, you see that I updated it. You're like, this is looking sharp, Rich. All right, so Hunt 102 is my main heavy lifting tool. Hunt 102 is a crow-quill, they'll call it. They come in little boxes. You can buy them individually, the little metal pen nibs. What I use is this little brown pen holder. They have fancier ones that look like this with cork. You definitely want to make sure that it'll hold Hunt 102 or whatever nib that you're going to put in it. And there's even ones that are metal that have like twisting, you know, parts that can sort of get snug around it. My ink of choice for many years has been Ultra Draw. So this is the ink that I use. You can get in a bigger bottle, but normally I'll buy about 12 of these or maybe 2 boxes, like 24 of these at a time. And fresh out of the bottle, it's real smooth. It'll work real good. And if you let it age a little bit, and maybe like a bigger bottle with a lid, but you know, keep your older ink in that, it will get thicker and be nice and black for filling in blacks. But you don't want to use that necessarily in something like this. So these are rapidographs. This was my #1 tool for a long time. Even when I originally first started doing samples to break into comics, this is what I used, the gray one. In fact, I did 9 or 10 pages and even a huge Spawn pinup that I drew. And not only did I ink it all with this pen, but I even filled in all the blacks, very carefully putting the lines all in singular directions that look good with the art. But they go thin to thick. I never, ever use the orange one. The green one is pretty rare. I, in fact, have never even seen this dark blue one. So I didn't even realize that there was a pen between the red and the green. And then these two are very thin, and honestly, I'll tell you the truth. They're really terrific pens, but they are so fragile that unless you have a lot of money, I would not mess with these two. These two are troublemakers. They literally, if you look at them wrong, they will not work anymore. The needle that's inside of them is so thin, it's literally unbelievable. I don't even know how they make the pen. But I will say this though, it will get a real thin line when it's working well, but you're gonna drop a lot of dough on that pen replacing them, and they're tough to clean too. All right, so Copic Multiliners though are actually a decent replacement for those, and Copic Multiliners do actually have this is the main size that I use, which is the 01, but there is an 005 which is thinner, and there's an 003 that's thinner than that. And those are nice, and they'll sort of replicate a little bit of what's going on with these two super thin rapidographs. But anyway, yeah, Copic Multiliners are fantastic, and then a cheaper option would be the Micron pen. But these aren't as cheap as I always imagined them to be. I think that these, I always refer them as like $1 a pen, but I think that they are more. But my ones that I mainly use would be, sorry, I've got the brush. I use the 01, again, probably the most. The 005 is nice for thin detail. 03, 05, 08. 08, you can, you know, will make nice thick panel borders and stuff like that. As far as I've ever been able to tell, the ink seems to age well. If I'm doing panel borders with my rapidographs, I use the red one. We'll call it Big Red. And then with Copic Multiliners, I've never done panel borders with them. So, all right, those are the tools of the trade. We've got our brushes. I mentioned before in the first video of the series, I use Series 7, which is just the sort of, I guess, the style of brush. And then I tend to use a 3 the most, but I will use a 2, and a 4 is excellent too. 4 is getting thicker, and I don't use brushes that are smaller than that, because a good 2, 3, or 4 will get a very sharp line, and you'll be able to do as thin a detail as you want, as long as the brush is in good shape. All right, now, Ed Bennis. He is a really, really great penciler. Sometimes I actually do think that he's a little bit underrated, because he's really, really good, and his pencils are just killer. I don't have a copy of the pencils on this one, but anyway, so this was from Deathstroke. This was the job, I think I mentioned this, is I was hit up by an editor, and they said, hey, do you want to do Batman Deathstroke? And I was like, hell yeah, I want to do Batman Deathstroke. And so we started working on it, and I mean, the story looked great, and I kept kind of waiting for Batman to show up. He never did, and you know, I don't even really remember what the story was, but I remember emailing him about 14 or 15 pages into this thing and going like, where's Batman? Like, so it was kind of funny, but this is great. We're going to pull out a little bit. Let's, we can go in full screen mode for this. I love this bottom left figure is just so badass. It looks like he's using black razor or something like that. But the pose is so dynamic, and it's got such a nice quality to it. I mean, credit to Ed. I'm not tooting my own horn on the inks on it. I'm just saying that it's a very, very beautiful, beautiful thing. I do actually have originals of Ed's for sale. I'll have a link to eBay and Comic Art Fans in the description box if you want to look through the Ed Bennis stuff that I have available. This page is not one that I'm selling. I think I sold it a while ago. I haven't seen this page in a while, but I have some really, really good Ed Bennis pages. So if you're into that kind of thing, check it out, and you can you know, see what's what. You know, there's little spots that I kind of go, I don't know, maybe I would have done it a little different. I think the halo around these fingers was probably unnecessary. It's a stupid thing to key in on, but it bugs me for one reason, and it's just I don't like I mean, I probably would figure out what I was going to do. This may not work either. But my point being is I don't like this triangle right here. It really, really bugs my eye. And so with the two things together, it's like, you know, you have to kind of go in and make some decisions on what you're going to do. I mean, I guess the halo kind of works. I would have maybe haloed them more of this. You know, like pop the whole thing out. I think that might have helped it. Where then you have more shapes, and then this white shape doesn't become so intrusive. So that probably would have been my fix, is complete the halos. I'm not a big fan of halos. In fact, I actually had said that to my editor on Crystal Planet, because there was it was funny too, is he keyed in and he goes, this looks different than your other stuff, and he was referring to it as a Bacalo thing, and I thought it was funny because Bacalo uses a lot of halos, but I had a bunch of characters in a big kind of epic, you know, sort of Lord of the Rings, you know, battle thing going on. And they needed some halos to separate some of the characters, I thought. But I was hesitant to do it. But, yeah, I'm not a big Halo fan. But some artists use it all the time. I mean, it really becomes part of their style. But if I can get away with it, I would rather have black bleed into black. But, you know, this isn't real fussy. So the one thing that I noticed with Ed's stuff, and I know sometimes when people are learning to ink, there's this idea that, like, the feather lines should be perfect, and the rendering should be perfect and stuff like that. And it does work for some pencilers, and for others it doesn't. So Ed, when I saw his pencils, I was getting like a weird, almost like Neil Adams vibe from it. There's other styles going on in Ed's stuff. I mean, you can definitely see maybe like some Joe Madureira or Jim Lee, or maybe even like Mike Deodato or something like that. I'm not saying those are influenced. I'm just saying that, like, if you're painting in broad strokes, you might connect some similarities between them. But Ed's stuff had a real kind of kinetic energy to how he laid down his lines. And I felt like going in and trying to make them very anemic and very sort of surgically accurate might kind of work against sort of the cool factor of his stuff. So then the challenge is blending loose with tight. And, you know, where do you go really tight and mechanical-ish? And then where do you let it kind of breathe and do other stuff? So, you know, it's just one of those things. And again, some of these lines that look feathery, I pretty much could guarantee are probably done with another tool, like Copic Multiliner or something like that. Because, You could do this with a brush. It would, to me, it would be slower. I would be switching tools. I would be going in and kind of doing things. And in fact, thinking of it now, the one thing that I was dealing with also at this time was the DC paper wasn't so great. So it was a little mushy, and that definitely was affecting the tool choices that I could make. Meaning that a Hunt 102, the Crow Quill, this guy, Mr. Metal Tip, here's the rub with that, and also the rub with rapidographs on kind of today's paper, is it's a little more raggy, so it tears easier. These metal tools will kind of rip the paper, and it shouldn't. That's the thing, is good paper can actually take these tools. It's like a tattoo artist, you know, where when you get a tattoo, it's actually kind of carving it into your skin, and that's why the tattoo remains. So kind of the same idea with these crow quills. Now, brush, it does lay down a line, but it's actually sitting on the surface of the paper. It doesn't go into the paper the same way, so it doesn't tend to have the potential to rip the paper. But anyone who's ever tried to ink knows what I'm talking about, because you can actually have paper that's so porous that even a brush will make it bleed. And what I mean by bleed is if you put down a line, it starts to, you ever like get a paper towel wet with like punch, and you start to see all the fibers of the paper with the texture, you know, the liquid that's gotten on it is actually seeping into like different areas. That's what will happen with shitty paper. So anyway, these look like they might have been ruled with like a French curve. So French curve is a tool that kind of looks like this. It's plastic. Usually they come in like 3-packs, so you'll get like a medium one and then a small one that's got some kind of weirder curves on it. I almost only just use the big one if I'm going to use it. And you want to get it with an inking edge, meaning that it can handle ink pens and stuff like that. It won't smear as easily. So anyway, but yeah, so this is Ed Bennis, Beyond the Page. Beautiful, beautiful Batman versus Deathstroke page. Really, really kick-ass. All of his pages have these beautiful, beautiful black areas. And just, man, it's just so ballsy and looks so good. So hopefully that was fun. And I've never met Ed in person. It would be very, very cool. I remember so vividly seeing his sample pages that he had sent into Wildstorm to get work the first time. And this is years and years ago, and he had sent in some Wildcat sample pages, and they were so good, in fact, that Wildstorm published them. So they're I think in Wildcats 50, and they expanded the story, I think, around his original sample pages. But man, his pencils were beautiful. They were much tighter back then, but he still draws tight now. But he also has been drawing for like 25 years, so he can go in and really kind of blast it out in a very kinetic and spontaneous way. So anyway, yeah, I think if the paper would have been a little bit better, this would have even looked sharper. You know, I can see and feel a little bit of that sensation of mush. You know, the lines just all, I think, suffer from, you see, like, just every line kind of has, it breaks apart. It's just the paper, you know. All those little pixels kind of make it a little fuzzy. The only thing, though, is some of that is cool and actually adds like nice detail, but you know, when the paper's a little too mushy, then it can look a little weird. But I think Ed's stuff can withstand it. Oh man, I have some other really, really great Bennis pages. We'll definitely do more. So, all right, talk to you guys later. Love you all. I'll see you tomorrow with something, who knows, whatever I can find, whatever is exciting. And check the links in the description box below. You can go to Patreon, sign up for Patreon. So this is the last month that it's going to be $1 to get in. I'm switching it today. So it's going to either go to $2 is the minimum, or $3. I've been on Patreon for 2 years. I've kept it at $1, but it's a lot of work, and you know, it doesn't make sense for me to do it as inexpensive as I've been doing it. No one else on Patreon really goes that low, so I don't know. It's just time to change it. Anyway, and then there's links to eBay and also Comic Art Fans. If you're interested in picking up some art, you can contact me through those. All right, later.